Hey everybody, welcome back to World History with Mr. Finn. We are starting to see the end of the Roman Empire. Just a quick recap, it has gotten too large. There is no way to manage all of the entirety of the known world around the Mediterranean because it just is that big. Now we're going to start to see some of the reasons why it's going to collapse or why it's going to end. Partly because of its size, but really basically what happens is, okay, it's super big. It's, the largest empire. So when a couple things start to go awry or go off, it becomes a major problem. And we're going to see what those major problems are. Before we even get to Diocletian and Constantine, who we talked a little bit about Christianity, before their time, before Diocletian, we have saw a big, era of disorder from 180 to really for about 100 years. There was emperors that were not as good again, because remember, as we said, some emperors are better than other ones. You get a number of them in a row, and that's a good thing. But you might get 3 or 4 bad emperors in a row, and it really messes up things. We get to a point before Diocletian where out of 22 emperors, none of them make it for more than 2 years, and 21 of them are murdered within a 2-year span of coming into power. So think about that. There's like 22 emperors, and they only last for 2 years before they are killed, except for one. So it's not good during this time period. But Diocletian and Constantine come in and they give some stability, and they really keep Rome going a little bit further because, spoiler alert, we're going to look at the end of Rome in 476 AD. So we're getting there. And then when I say 476, it's not it's not like it just happens right at that date. Like, that date is the date we give it, but it was bad even for like 50, 70 years before that. So really by the time we get to the end of the 300s, we're seeing some major things. So why? Why does this happen? Let's get to it. Let's at least begin to get to it. Diocletian and Constantine are going to be 2 emperors that give stability, and that's good. These are good emperors as far as keeping the empire going. But some things that we're going to see. 1, plague. Plague can cause a major problem. Well, obviously, we're in a pandemic, right? Plague is a little bit different, but I'll get to that in a second. All right. So what's going to be when you see the word plague is going to actually cause population's going to go down, but population's going to go down massively. Like, it's going to be plague or bubonic plague is disease that will kill the healthiest of people. Like, if you get this, you're going to die, which is going to decrease our population. So, a massive drop. So not just a slight drop, but a massive drop. So it's a little bit different. Like I said, I know we're in a pandemic right now, and we have a virus that is spreading, and that virus is people are more susceptible than others with this virus. Whereas, again, when a plague hits, a plague is a massive disease that comes through that does unfortunately kill the people that get it on a much larger scale than we are looking at now, which is good news for us, not for these Romans. But this massive drop in population then piggybacks something else. When you lose people, your population goes down. Your taxes go down. And taxes are money. And if the government doesn't have money, it makes it very difficult to do things like fund an army and do everything. On top of that, Rome has gotten too big, and now with a drop in population, meaning that's going to have a drop in people who are in the military, barbarians, or anybody who lives outside the Roman Empire, that's what a barbarian is. Anyone outside the empire is a barbarian, as far as Romans are concerned. But that does mean that you could be The Huns from Asia. You could be the Germanic tribes. You could be Middle East and Syrian. So you could be a lot of different people. Barbarians are not just one group of people. However, there are barbarians. That means everywhere around the Roman Empire outside of it. And with a weaker military, because you have a drop in population, a drop in soldiers, and you're not able to fund it as much, you're going to see two things happen. One, barbarians are going to start to attack different areas, but also, this is important, barbarians are going to be hired soldiers. So the Romans are going to eventually start to hire Germanic tribesmen to be in their military because they just don't have anyone. And they're just trying to hold things together, but they're like, listen, plague is hit, our population's down, the empire doesn't have a lot of money, we don't have people to even put in the military. Let's hire these Germanic people to be in it, and at least we can have our military still, have this force. And we'll look back at a reason why this is not going to be good. With this population decrease and all, not able to work as much, so when your population goes down, you also are going to see a food shortage, because Romans were farmers and they grew a lot of wheat and grain and things like that. Now there's less people doing that, and that means that the government doesn't have as much food. There is a food shortage, which is going to contribute to what is called inflation. Economic term of the day. Inflation is a sharp rise in prices. So imagine that you go to McDonald's today and you buy a quarter pounder meal and it costs $7. And then let's say tomorrow you go to McDonald's and you buy that same quarter pounder meal, but today it costs $13. You'd be like, wait a second, why does it cost so much? That's crazy. I know that it doesn't cost that much. I just got it yesterday. That is what inflation is. It's a sharp rise in prices because there's less food, and so there's going to be this inflation that's going to trickle down to a lot of different things, and prices are going to go up, meaning that people are not going to be able to live as they once did. This is all bad, by the way. This is all negative things that are happening to the Roman Empire during these times. In fact, where we're going to stop today is as we get to the mid to end of the 300s here, we are going to see basically, it's called the late Roman Empire, and we don't really talk about communism and dictatorships as much as other classes, but what's going to happen in the late Roman Empire, during this time period, basically these emperors that come in charge are like, yo, we got a lot of problems, we have a ton of problems, what are we going to do? And basically what we're going to see is this, government takes more control. And some of the specifics are not things you need to have down your notes, really commit to memory, but basically the idea is the government is going to lock everything down and say, listen, you are a bread maker, great, that's what you're going to do your whole life. And you know what? Your kid's going to do that their whole life too, and their kid's going to do that their whole life. You don't have any choices. You have no more freedom now. Like we are telling you, you have to do this. We'll put people in the military. It becomes a dictatorship in the sense of now the government is telling you what you are allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do, and it's going to control your life in an effort to keep things, stable, to keep the Roman Empire alive. So this would not be a good time to be a Roman citizen because technically your freedoms are being taken away, and all the things that were given to you are now being stripped away because, again, population's going down. There's shortages in food. There's prices are going up super high, and they're just trying to do something to keep the empire alive. Not to mention the barbarians are attacked. It would be constant upheaval and craziness during this time period. So things are not looking good in the Roman Empire as we get into the mid to late 300s. I'm going to tell you next class what are going to be some of the things that are going to finally tip the Roman Empire over on our final years of the Roman Empire. But today we're just getting started the second semester. Send me your notes for participation in attendance purposes. That's what we'll do today, and then we'll get going. We'll finish up this Roman Empire.